We are back.
How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you?
Yeah, this is
I,
good. I just fucking ignored you when we got in.
Just like, well, I sent you that voice note and you're like, don't talk to me. I was like, cool, I'll see you in a bit.
Yeah, but when you were like, I'm outside, and I was like, I might just sit in my car until we're in.
Yeah, until we need to get on air. But yeah, man, I'm good. Been crazy week, but it's been really good.
Good. How was your thing? Do you go and set up your
Yeah,
pop-up?
set a pop-up in the High Cross in one of the units. So yeah, set it all up and then stood around for about 40 minutes. I was like, what do I need to do? Is there anything I need to do? So just got some content because content is key.
Very true. It's hard, those difficult periods, when you've got like a little bit of time and you kind of like neither here nor there.
Yeah.
And you're like, what can I do with this? I felt like I had some dead space earlier and I was like, I just can't.
Yeah.
What can I do in this time? How can I make this productive? I feel like, I don't know.
That's it.
Sometimes every moment is like, how do I make this productive?
Yeah.
Like, just chill out for a second. It's fine. Like.
So I went and worked for a little bit before coming here. So we are back, episode 2.
Here we are.
Of One for the Boys podcast. Logo this time. Sick.
We're fully into it.
For those that are actually watching on YouTube and are not listening to us, if you're listening to us, then we've got a really nice logo on the TV.
Yeah, it won't make any fucking difference to
you. The first episode got released Monday.
Yeah.
The response has been mad.
Yeah,
like,
I'm excited.
Everybody's been like, it's really good. Almost better than expected, which is nice. It was nice that we had low expectations in the first place.
I think, like we said it, I just didn't want it to be boring.
Yeah.
I didn't want people to be like, Christ, that was hard to get through.
Yeah.
And particularly as it was our first one, there was no structure to it.
Yeah.
That was my biggest fear, that people were going to be like, boring. But yeah, I had a couple of people message me like, really enjoyed that, looking forward to more. Yeah,
that was it. It was like, people were like, after like the first like 10, 15 minutes when we kind of like almost knew what was happening, because at first it was a bit like, what's going on? Then we kind of got into it and people were like, that's when it was like good. And in terms of like they enjoyed the rest of it more, it was like continue to listen. Biggest feedback was everyone wanted a jingle. So maybe at some point we'll put something in. That was funny.
Yeah, I feel like a previous version of me would have like had that panic of like, it needs to be perfect. We need a jingle before we start. Whereas, and then no one would have said it.
No.
Whereas like now we're like, start and just build on it. First episode. Where's the music, guys?
Right. Like, where's the intro jingle?
Chill out.
Don't worry, it will come. It will happen just naturally, I think.
Yeah.
It'll be like, we'll say something in one of the first like 6 episodes and we're like, right, that's the jingle.
Where we're going.
Yeah. Or we'll just get something made.
Yeah.
But no, I'm good, man. How's things with you?
Yeah, absolutely fine. We have a semi-agenda today.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about ourselves for a little bit, which is nice. And I don't know, I think talking about yourself is a weird one, because, I don't know, it's just part of this, isn't it? It's sharing our experiences. Yeah. And I think that's what we're here for, isn't it? Just sharing sort of like what's gone on. What we want to do is give a bit more background to who we are, and why we're setting this up. And it's difficult for anyone listening to like buy into us as people if they know absolutely nothing about us. Yeah,
that was it. It's like they'll find the podcast and they'll be like, "Whoa, who are these guys?" Like they've gone from episode 1 where it was just a bit of a mishmash of all sorts about what we want to talk about, and then we jump into like a particular subject, like alcohol or like male toxicity, and they're like, well, hold on, who the hell are Matt and Dan? What's their stories? Like, why have they got to this point, and what's their reasoning behind wanting to start the podcast from their personal journey? So yeah, we're going to try and split this half and half, but we'll see just how it goes. Because it's going to be good to share a little bit of our stories, which was really hard when we're like, let's write some life notes. I was putting it down on paper like, well, what happened at this time?
I missed loads of stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you put yours in, I looked at mine and I was like, oh, this happened, this. I also did this and this. And I think it'll work nicely in the sense of like, we know we want to talk about our experiences, but also we've not scripted anything.
Yeah.
We've basically just given each other some notes.
Yeah.
To like steer us a little bit.
Which I wrote down on some paper because it's 1993 instead of on my phone.
It's funny how you wrote it down on the Notion so that we could both see it, and then you've also written it down.
I realised Dan and Matt, so I've got like both.
Just having it on the Notion thing. You're meant to be the tech guy, man.
I know, yeah. I just like writing it down, because if I write it down, then I'll know. Like when I was going through the notes, and I was like looking at yours, and I was looking at mine, and being like, I've missed out like two of the biggest things that happened to me in terms of like my turning point of things. So
do you want to kick off with yourself? So in terms of
let's go for it.
I like if we go from when you're younger, because it's chronological is nice, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of put it in that order, but I guess it's really funny actually. Like I'm now doing a podcast. I have a clothing brand which I put my face to that, and when people meet me, I'm very confident. But growing up, I was the complete opposite. I was like such a shy kid. Like all of my family would be like, I can't believe you're doing a podcast now. Actually, some of them did say, I can't believe you're doing a podcast because you were like super shy when younger. And I think a lot of it was my weight. And I felt very self-conscious, to almost like my weight fluctuated when I was a teen, because I was like skateboarding every day or like being active in that sense, but I was still not confident enough because of having weight when I was younger. And then when I went to uni, I found the best Chinese around the corner on Bronston Gate, put loads of weight on again in like first year, or like foundation to first year. And then I got to a point where I was like, something needs to change. So then I lost loads of weight over that summer, and I gained loads of confidence from it. And I feel like that almost shook a bit of the childhood, like non-confidence away. So I just felt more confident myself.
Almost
in
like
that sense.
I was going to say literally shedding your skin, but it's fun, but like literally turning into a new person. Yeah.
And I felt like that childhood shyness almost disappeared to a certain point. Sometimes it comes back, but yeah, I was a super shy kid.
Yeah, I would say you're really like you're more than happy to go and talk to people. Like I would say we're both to a point a little bit introverted, but I would say that you are much more heads up happy to talk to people than I am. I can be a little bit head down, run away.
Yeah, it's like social coupons are gone. Leave me alone.
Whereas I feel like you're, especially with like how I know that you were obviously doing pop-ups, you have to be heads up, approachable, happy to talk to people. So that's interesting, that transition.
Yeah, and I think that like that losing that weight was probably like just under 4 stone in like 6 months. And that was like skateboarding, running, boxing a little bit over the summertime when I was working a bar, but like in the daytime I was free. So it was almost like 9 hours of just solid movement and exercise. Like I ate like, I went on a diet, or to speak, like just salads and just high proteins and all that kind of stuff. So it was like I lost a lot of weight. And when I came back to uni, people were like, whoa, you're like a completely different person. And it'd be interesting if we could put on the YouTube channel the before and after.
Yeah, that would be sick.
Like as a little pop-up to show what I was like before summer and then end of summer going back to uni. I guess that was where it all kind of started, where I was like getting a bit more confidence. And going to uni, like obviously I wanted to get a degree, but I felt like socially I became a lot more confident by going out and meeting people that obviously I'd never met before. And I thought that's where I gained a lot of confidence with it.
Almost like that perfect timing as well, where you lose 4 stone and within the same sort of like year period get like, I imagine, properly introduced to like drinking and going out and that kind of thing. So it's almost like a perfect shitstorm of getting confidence through the way that you look and confidence through like drinking.
Alcohol. Yeah, absolutely. And like going back to like how you think that I'm quite confident when I do pop-ups and stuff, I guess that's probably my 7 to 8 years in retail. Like going from a sales assistant to like a manager, like I had to just put on a face of like, this person's either gonna be really nice to me or they're angry about something. I've just got to take it and just get on with it. And I feel like that gave me even more confidence. So it is funny how like my story starts being like probably the least confident kid in the playground, going to that and then being like one of the my friends would probably say one of the most confident in terms of like social. Not necessarily when I'm with them because I'm quite quiet. There's a lot more alphas in the group.
Yeah.
But I just absorb and go along. But it's like when I can just go out and do a pop up for like 3-4 days and just talk to people.
Yeah.
For like hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes too much.
That's
yeah.
That's really interesting. How did you think? So you spent a lot of your teen years with your granddad.
Yeah.
Learning to like sew, doing the t-shirt stuff,
Yeah.
things like that. Do you feel like that, because that's not a particularly mainstream thing to do, you were also sort of like a little bit off the beaten track in terms of what you were doing with your time? Does that make sense? Whereas like your classic kid is like playing out in the park or like playing football at the weekend, like going to football training, rugby training, whatever it is, activities like that, whereas you were doing something completely different.
Yeah. Like I did play rugby for a little bit, did taekwondo, but I just never got a buzz from them. But then, being like going skateboarding, almost feeling like a bit of an outcast in that era of like, late 90s, early 2000s, skating was kind of still like, if you skated, you're like a punk rebel. Like, and then obviously I got into metal music and it was like, I felt a bit of like an outcast in that sense. Like a lot of my friends did because we were different in that. But like spending summers with my granddad in his shed or like spending days with him just making like t-shirts and learning that fashion side, I did feel like, well, no one else is doing this. But then I think that's what made me think, I'm going to get into fashion at some point.
Yeah.
Whether it's now.
How old were you when you started like with your granddad?
I would have been like 15.
Okay.
Around 15, just like, it was like in the summer of skating, and if people weren't around, it's like I'd go to my granddad's. Like, lucky they had a pool, so I'd go for a swim, and then granddad would show me how to do stuff like in the garage, which was really cool because it gave me that like interest in like, I want to learn. I was really interested in the manufacturing side of like fashion and like the technical side, like touchy-feely, what's the fabric like, what's this like, and being able to do that. He had rolls of fabric in his garage. I'd just go like make some jumpers and t-shirts. It was really that really interested me, but it was that, I think that's what sparked it. And it was it was weird when I told people, like, or turned up someone, I'd made a t-shirt, people were like, oh, what the hell is that? Like, because he had like the templates he had were from like 1950s still, so like the raglan cut, and I was like, yeah, cool. But I didn't care. I put it underneath my big Slipknot hoodie, but it did feel a bit outcasty in a way.
Those skills, though, they must have transferred into not only what you do now, but what you did, like going into uni and stuff like that, and working in retail as well. Yeah. Understanding fabrics and process, I can only imagine has been useful. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because I learned a lot of like sewing techniques and, different cuts of garments. So, obviously uni sparked my interest in design. So I did graphics illustration at De Montfort, which was Polytechnic back in the day, which is where, if anyone has seen my recent post on my Clatch, there was a Hawthorne building, and that my granddad learnt to tailor there. And then my dad actually went there to learn some of his courses for his health and safety, like engineering, when they used to do that, like night courses, and I went there to learn some of my stuff. So it was almost like 3 generations. That's so cool. Yeah, and I felt it was like there was a real connection to that building, knowing that that's when my granddad learned how to tailor. But those skills are kind of like transferable into that, because when I then got into retail, it was like I know a lot of cuts of like jeans and like tees and stuff. So when someone asked me something, I knew kind of straight away, which was cool, because some people just use retail as like a job. They like turn up, leave 3 hours later, have no interest. And I was so interested in like when we got like new stock in or new brands, especially when I was working at Urban Outfitters, like working with brands like Dickies, like Carhartt. Such a big product focus. Yeah, like where their attention to detail was like so good. Like they had looked at the garment and been like, right, is everything perfect? How can we make it better? Or do we leave it like, what's the stitching like? And that kind of really got like, I got really into that, and like packaging and swing tags. So it's really funny when we go shopping now, like all I do is just go around, look at all the packaging. Zoe, my partner's just like, what are you doing? It's like, that swing tag looks really cheap. I know, it's crazy. So from working in Urban Outfitters as a manager to starting a design career and then obviously starting your own fashion brand.
Yeah.
Like what have you found? What's the journey been initially? And then I guess I want to know what you found to be the biggest challenges, both expected and unexpected.
So when I was at Urban, it was amazing. Like there was 4 of us who set up the store pretty much. Mm-hmm. Like we did the recruitment and everything, and they're just under 2 years. And it was definitely the best retail place I've worked at, because sometimes it didn't feel like work. Like we recruited such a cool team from the start that it was like everyone was just so nice and everyone just got on, and it was like we're all in it for the same reason. At that point, Urban was very creative focused. Like they were like they did care about numbers, and they were like driven by like finance and things, but it was very much how's the store look. And like for me that was great. Like, I was able to really make menswear, style everything out. Each table was a different brand, and it was like, okay, what can we do, like outfit builds and all that kind of stuff, which was great. Like that really gave me a lot of inspo into wanting to do something within fashion. And yeah, I knew I wanted a brand at some point, but I was like, how do I get into the fashion industry doing what I spent £21,000 on at uni? Like I was like, how do I then put those skills into it? I managed to find a company in Leicester that did labels and packaging and anything that can go on a garment for fashion. So I was like, well, that was the perfect transition. Went for my interview. I was the first person they interviewed, and they ended up hiring me because they were like, well, this guy knows his stuff. Like he understands everything, the attention to detail. So then, yeah, went into designing and working, like getting to go to like companies like Adidas in Germany and working with them teams and being really involved in like the design process of like they've got a garment, and it's like, how can they embellish it? Is there anything they can add to it? And kind of being involved in that, I was like, oh, this is definitely what I want to do for like the rest of my life. How can I have my own brand? And then obviously Clutch, the idea came around in 2019. Didn't have a clue what I was going to call it. I thought it was going to be a clothing brand in terms of like actual t-shirts and hoodies and all that kind of stuff. And like,
getting there. Yeah,
here we go, limited edition.
T-shirts, by the way, for those of you driving.
Yeah, and listening to us. I'm putting up a t-shirt. And I was like, okay, well, what do I need? Like, what do I need it to be? How do I, kind of like think of this idea and launch it? And then lockdown happened, and I didn't realise at the time, but when I had time at home, I was like, wow, my mental health is not good. And I think it was like, I was at one of my old places for nearly 6 years, and I'd grafted and not necessarily...
Places of work,
yeah. I'd got some reward, but I wanted more. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to go do more. I wanted to see more. And it just never happened. So I felt like I'd put a lot of effort in and didn't get a lot of reward back. So when I had that time at home through lockdown, I was like, whoa, my mental health isn't great. Almost had that time to have me time. Like be able to like actually clock off at 5 o'clock, work 9 to 5. I was pretty much there first in the office, and I was like pretty much last to leave.
Yeah. So
I was doing a lot longer hours than that. But then being at home, I was like, oh, okay, I can have this. I'm not driving an hour from Leicester to home. I've got this time for myself. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, that needs to be the focus of the brand.
When you say your mental health wasn't good, what do you mean by that? Like,
there were some days where I'd get home from work and I'd just like burst out crying to Zoe, and she'd be like, what's wrong? And I was like, there's no like job, there's no satisfaction. Like I didn't feel satisfied with what I was doing, or I felt like I was giving so much and getting so little back, and I felt like I was maybe worth more. I felt like I maybe should have been a bit further on in the career path, and that really got to me for some reason. Probably from like the social side of things, like that pressure of like, you have to be, once you've been in a job 5 years, you have to have this title. Once you've like been here, you've got to progress to this. Like I felt like I got to a point where I was hitting a ceiling and there was nothing there for me. And that really played on my mental state, and just didn't feel like myself, just felt like almost brain dead in a way, which is weird because I've been with Zoe for quite a long time then, and I felt like there'd been a shift from the start of that relationship to where I was at that point, and it was taking a toll on that as well. Like, she didn't want to see me upset, and I feel like for anyone watching, one of the lights has just gone out. If you change that.
What was that?
I think that went a little bit like
So
not as bright.
So confused because it's still on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's gone from white to orange.
Like an
Can't
orange.
Look at that for too long. I think we'll be alright. You're just gonna look like you've got a tan, basically.
Great. So the relationship just suffered a little bit, and I knew something had to change. And with lockdown, it gave me a bit of time to almost take a breath. So yeah, my mental health was more just putting a lot of pressure on myself, I guess. And looking back now, I wish I hadn't, but I feel like that's what society was telling me to do, was like be at a certain point in my career by a certain age, and that really did. I put that pressure on myself, which was super frustrating. So then obviously with the brand, I was like, well, it has to be mental health based. I had done Movember for years before. It was always something I got involved in. I think probably because like in the rugby scene, it's massive. Like Movember's really big.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of friends that I knew who used to play rugby that I was friends with that still did it, and I just kind of got involved, I think. And I'd done it at one of my other employments as well. I kind of like headed up doing the team, and their resources for me when I was going through like mental stuff, I found it super helpful on their website. Yeah, there's loads of charities you can go to, but I feel like what I found on their website really helped. Just reading things and just like following them and just seeing like how motivation it
so
can be.
mental, isn't it? Pardon the pun. I didn't mean that at all. I'd never even considered what Movember actually do for mental health.
Yeah,
I've never even thought about it. I just thought they're a charity that, I don't know. I was going to say provide services then, but I literally hadn't even thought of the fact that they might have material for you to just pick up and have a look at.
Yeah, which a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people still think it's very heavily on the prostate, like cancer side of things. But no, their mental health and suicide awareness side is just as big, if not, to be honest, it's probably even getting bigger than the prostate cancer side, which was like kind of what they almost started with in a way. So they helped. So I was like, well, I have to do something with them for the brand. So that's why I donate 10% back to them, because I feel like I've got like a duty to do that, because they like not personally helped me, but in terms of like their resources helped take their breath. And I think the biggest challenges from like you're asking about challenges, like going from retail to an office job, I did find hard for probably the first 6 months to a year. Probably hitting 15 to 20,000 steps a day, just sitting down from 9 till 5, I found really difficult. I didn't realise how much I loved kind of going and doing things, moving around and things like that.
How did you find it socially? Because obviously you've gone from customer facing to then non-customer facing.
That was difficult, because interacting with somebody on an email instead of face to face was really interesting, because people can hide behind it and they can be rude, and and they can almost get away with it. So there'd be some people that were, I was like, okay, well, it is what it is. Some people got really offended by the people's emails, and I was like, well, that's nothing in comparison to like working in retail.
Dealing with Karen every Saturday.
But the biggest challenge for me was probably like the change of moving around and being active in that sense, to especially when I lost the weight, I tried to keep as active as I could. Yeah. And then going and sitting down. So I did put a little bit of weight on over that first 6 months to a year. Like obviously the office of 3 coffees a day, someone else has bought cakes in.
It'd be crazy if you didn't, to be honest. Like that transition, unless you made a big change to what you're doing outside of work. Yeah. The maths is just, definitely. It's always going to happen. It was bound to happen at some point. But then obviously lockdown happened, and I had all the ideas behind the brand. So I was like, great, well, that's it, mental health focused. And then it took me 7 months to think of what to call it. I could have called it anything. Could have called it Matt's Hats, but which would have been hilarious if I had. No, and then I was just looking at different meanings of social gatherings, and then
there it popped up, Clatch, an informal social gathering at which coffee is served. And I was like, that's it.
I'm down for that.
Yeah, just a conversation. How can I start a conversation around mental health? If someone says, oh, I really like your products, or like, I really like the brand, there we go.
Yeah.
Conversation started. Then I tell them what it's about, and they're like, that's sick, love it. And then we've got a mutual love of like that, like the fashion or products, or like I say, oh, like music and all that kind of stuff. So it's the instant connection. It's like, oh, about mental health, and like, yeah, I agree that guys don't talk much or talk at all. And so I get to meet people and explain it that way, which was sick.
From thinking of your first sketch for the logo, or like for the hat or whatever it was, to now, what have been your sort of biggest difficulties mentally? Have there been any? I've just assumed there have.
yeah. The ones are, I compared myself a lot for the first year and a half. It was 2 years in the brand. I was like, well, this brand's done this in 12 months. Why am I not doing that? Like, and then I realised that I can't compare myself to everyone else. And then I questioned, does the logo look good? Are people like not liking it? What's going on? Like, people not wanting to like invest in it? But then I just realised it's because I'm a small brand and I've been going a year and a half. People don't know who I am. Like, they go on the website and we're like, oh, what's this? Like, it seems too good to be true, like, kind of thing. But that's just with any young brand, you know, it takes time. That was the biggest mental challenge, because I was like comparing myself a lot to other brands and other people, and questioning my design, questioning the colours I released, questioning the styles. I was like, is it right? Is it wrong? And yeah, like, I'll like sometimes be thinking, oh God, I've just ordered 25 caps and I'm like, how am I going to sell them? And then, yeah, nearly just over 2.5 years in, I'm like, well, I've sold out a lot of stuff, so just have confidence in it, and always double like, I say double it, like questioning, is the right decision? But I've realised now you've got to back yourself. Literally just go all in, balls deep, and it'll pay off. Because from our autumn winter range that we spoke about last time, it's pretty much completely changed. Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? I felt happy about it, but I didn't feel buzzing about it.
Yeah.
And then I changed everything colours wise, and I was like, fuck, this is sick.
Bit of an adjustment.
Yeah. And it was when I was on a walk. I literally, like, in the morning, I was like, saw some colours. I was like, yep, that's the one. That's what I need to go with. And boom, it's now being produced.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's interesting with that journey from like how I started being like super like introvert, not wanting to talk to people in like social situations as a kid, to them, now doing a podcast in front of a camera and feeling comfortable, and everyone's like, what? You used to be really
super weird.
Yeah, you used to be like not confident at all. I'm like, used to literally hate going to like family events. I'm like, I don't want to see people.
Full circle.
Yeah, which is sick. Like, and the journey is amazing in that sense.
I just want to touch on the bad drinking experience that you had. Is that coming out of lockdown?
Yes. Yeah.
And
so that
sort of like, just what happened and your thoughts on that.
So obviously, was it 2020 when there was the first weekend that you could go out drinking again? Like, you were allowed to go to the pub. It was like, whoa, you could.
2020.
I think it was 2020. One of those events. It was either 2020 or 2021. Like, I feel like those 2-3 years were just like mental. There was a weekend where you could go to the pub and not have to order a Scotch egg with your pint or like some stupid rule. Got to have a pack of McCoys to be able to like go out and drink. And I drank a lot at uni because that was what happened, and I gained a lot of self-confidence with that as well. So I got the confidence from losing weight, and I gained a lot of confidence from drinking, and I guess say confidence with girls, but that still never happened. Like, just more confidence in general. And then whenever I was in social situations, I'd have drinks, but I'd almost like I wouldn't necessarily know my limit, and I'd just keep drinking and drinking.
Yeah.
And so this first weekend we were allowed, I went to the Shoulder and Mutton in Great Bowden.
Oh, I actually remember this.
Yeah.
I do remember.
Yeah, this is hilarious. So everybody that knows this story is probably pissing themselves right now, and anyone that doesn't, embrace yourself. So So it was like sunny. It was good. Could sit outside, table service, all of that. Don't have to get up. I can drink for 10 hours straight and have to move, apart from going to the toilet. So yeah, we just sat there and we're like, okay, we'll just have another one and then another one. And then we're like, maybe we should get some food at some point. And then 9 hours passed by. And the last thing I remember was ordering a double rum and Coke. And for anyone that knows, I love rum. And then after that, I just remember getting into the car. I don't remember what happened between that period of my first double rum and Coke. So apparently that wasn't my last. That was just like, yeah, my first double rum and Coke. But that was the last drink I remember, to getting in the car, by Zoe picking us up. I had like a little bucket in front of my face. Some of my mates were fine, 2 of us were not so good. Waking up at 5 a.m, being like, where's my phone? Where's my hat? Turned out that one of my mates had it. And the only reason I knew is because my iMessage came through on iPad saying he's like, why have I got your phone and hat? Like 5 a.m. I went downstairs in my dressing gown on the driveway looking for my phone, like thinking like before I'd seen the message. Woke up next day and just felt awful. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to feel like this. Like the whole day I just didn't eat anything. I was being sick and I was like, I don't want to feel like this again. And I realised that I was getting that pissed because I felt like I was like, it's going to give me loads of confidence. And I realised that I don't need to have alcohol like that to be confident. I've just got to believe in myself and be confident enough, because I'd done it already from like losing the weight. I was confident. So I was like, okay, I know I can go out and drink and not have to drink that much to be confident. I think that was a big turning point, being like, I like drink, I like rum. It's a nice social event. I like to have a nice wine, but I don't want to get to that point where I'm like, I can't remember a thing. And that was a big turning point for me. And then I focused more on the fitness side. So then I almost didn't drink for like months. And that was really interesting, because I was like, wow, I felt really good. Like mentally switched on a lot more. And then going to the gym and feeling like even better the next day, I was like, yeah, that was a big turning point for me in terms of drinking. And probably not a lot of people probably don't know that. I think there's only maybe a couple of my closest mates that I've ever said that to. They've never spoken about it. They just said it was just a crazy day. Like drinking from 12 and we just got absolutely steaming and that was it. But no, that was a big turning point for me, being like, actually, I don't need to. I don't want to have that pressure of society being like, you have to drink like that every time you go for a day session. You don't. So that was a really interesting time coming out of lockdown, being like, wow, okay, that wasn't so good. Don't need to do that again. Don't want that feeling the next day. Don't want to wake up being like, where is half of my valuables? And I also don't want to go outside my dressing gown at 5 a.m. looking for them, or Crocs on. Incredible sight.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
That's a good wrap up, I think. It's super hard in half an hour to try and pinpoint. It's a lifetime of stuff.
Yeah, man.
To try and wrap up super quick. But I think it's good to, those bits are nice. And particularly from like an unconfident teen, like you said a moment ago, into someone that's sat here with your own fashion brand, working for yourself, doing pop-ups, hosting a podcast. It's a big turnaround.
The biggest thing is just believing in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to do it. And now I'm like, every single day I design, freelance and design product, and I'm like, well, people are paying me for that, so they must love it, so I have to have the confidence that what I'm doing is right. And if you don't have that confidence, it's not going to make it. You just got to go and just be like, this is me, this is who I am. Like, people either love it or hate it, and I'm just cracking on. But it is full circle. But like I said, it is so hard to cram in everything in half an hour. There's my key points, I guess. The most like important parts, I think, that were like pivotable. Pivotable, is that the one?
Pivotal.
That's pivotal. That's the one. Oh,
I got you.
Right, my mate's gonna slam me for that. We'll edit it out. And my granddad was, for people that don't know, he passed away 6 years ago last week. And he was probably the most influential person in terms of fashion for me. And just in general, we'd like, his work ethic was just, it was like, you know what, I'm just going to put my effort in now and go for it. and yeah, he was lucky enough to be able to buy speedboats and make microlights and make planes and stuff for himself, which is pretty sketchy for any of my family members that know what I'm on about. Like, yeah, and because he was just like, that's the life he wanted, and that's the life I want. Basically, I want a sauna in my house. Yeah. So that's the life. That's the life I want to go with. That's the life I'm building. But yeah, no, it's difficult, man. That timing is great. Yeah, I guess for you now, a little bit about your story. Yeah. So, like, I guess it's similar in your first thing of like timeline. What you put down is like worried about social status at school. So that's interesting, because I was like obviously not confident at all, and now it was this social status. So kind of goes hand in hand. But let me know more.
I think it rolled through sport, because I'm always super sporty.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, through sport you gain like a popularity. Like the sporty kids are always generally popular because of that, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've had lots of reflection on this the last couple of weeks, like watching kids interact and stuff. We watched Goggles Brox. Have you seen that?
Is that the kids version of Gogglebox?
Yeah. Just like watching them interact just fascinated me.
Yeah.
And it's never really interested me before. Like, I've never thought about it before. But yeah, just like one kid will be talking, the other kid is just like looking at what they're doing, and like they're trying to replicate each other all the time, and it's like trying to like, it's so interesting. And I think it's to do with like social acceptance and people just, I'm gonna watch what you do. Oh, you just drunk, I want to have a drink, like I want to fit in. It's yeah, I don't know, it looking back on it, I think it's really normal, but I can tell now how caught up I got in, like, I was popular at primary school. I was like the football sporty kid at primary school, like won the sports awards, and then went to high school. You obviously like, do you go to Kidworth?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you go to Kidworth, so you go from like little primary school to Kidworth High School, and it's like, boom, all of a sudden there's like 3 years, there's lots of people.
Yeah.
The quality of sports goes up, like you've got a lot more people to compete with, so it's like, can I rise to the top in that? And then again, how does that reflect in my popularity in school? And I think because they were always sort of like, because I did sports, people knowing who you were was always a thing, and I then became bothered about it. And I don't know, I think a lot of my actions, particularly like pre-year 10 and 11, were based on what I thought people wanted from me, rather than actually being myself. Yeah. And it wasn't until, for whatever reason, like going to Robert Smythe, year 10 and 11, that I just started chilling out a little bit and just started doing my own thing a bit more. Yeah. I had like an array of friendship groups. Like I didn't have me and my best mate Hayden, like we didn't belong. We were like the two of us just like bounced from like group to group, rather than like being in that group of kids there, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think I learned to chill out a bit, but still I've always just had this massive thing about whether people like me. Do people just hang around with me because I was good at sports? Like what? I don't know. It's always been like ticking over in my head. Because I was horrendously competitive when I was younger. I like win at all costs at everything. Yeah. I then got labelled as arrogant quite a lot, and that bothers me even now. Like I'm still bothered that people are going to think I'm arrogant. So that when I go into social situations, I'm like, I don't want to come across as arrogant. So then how am I supposed to act? And constantly like second guessing what I'm supposed to be doing in social situations so that people don't think I'm arrogant. So that has been like, from a really young age, that has been something that I've like constantly battled with. I think it's where like public speaking is like one of my biggest fears. I think that's where that comes from, this sort of like judgment straight away. I obviously heard someone call me arrogant once, and it stuck with me so hard that I then, anytime I'm in front of any number of people, I'm constantly worrying about what do they think? What do they think I'm arrogant or another thing? So, school was a really interesting one for me, but just very sports focused as well. That's what I wanted to do as a career. First career, I wanted to be a rugby player. Didn't get that far. But yeah, interesting to look back on, I think. But then coming out of school, I think I just found it really hard, like job wise, trying to understand. I think we touched on this a little bit last time, like what was with you, wasn't it? And then telling you what you can and can't do at university. And I'm kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't really know what I'm good at either, other than like running around parks, like
with a rugby ball.
I found that stressful and uninspiring and frustrating. So I just went and did my A-levels. Like, shouldn't have done A-levels, just not academically smart enough, can't get my thoughts onto paper, don't retain information well.
Yeah.
Just an incredibly infuriating 2 years. And then just finished my A-levels, and my cousin pinged me a message like, what are you doing this summer? And I was like, nothing. He said, I've just opened a bar in Paris, do you want to come and work? I was like, yes. So I just finished my A-levels and got shipped off to Paris for I lasted 5 months, and then I was like, tapped out. Can't do this anymore.
City of love.
City of love, yeah. Just again, like that young naivety. It's so, I find, like, I really struggle with my younger self looking back on like decisions I made, ways I acted. Like, I find it really, really, really hard to accept and also to understand why I have friends. Like, I honestly genuinely contemplate. I'm like, why do the people that I used to hang out with when I was like in sixth form and stuff, like, how are they still my mates now? Like, how the fuck did they put up with me? Like, just dickish behaviour and saying dumb things and like, I don't know, I have a real issue with sort of like my former self. But going to France was a whirlwind. That was the first experience of like actual work, so like full-time work. Never been in full-time work. Always performed at a high level in my part-time roles. Always been good as part of a team. I got accused of like not having initiative. So it's my first time away from home. I didn't speak the language. I was the youngest in the team by a fucking mile. And they were like, you don't have enough initiative. Like, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And I was like, I'm doing exactly what you tell me to do. I'm like working hard. I'm trying to. So just to put it into perspective, as an 18-year-old, don't speak the language, never been away from home before. I was managing like coach loads of backpackers, and I'd be serving them on my own. I'd have a section of like 60 to look after on my own. They're all getting served at the same time, so it's not like in a restaurant where there's covers, there's like table of 5, table of 4. It's everyone at once on your own. Mental. Like,
that's crazy.
So dealing with that every night. Shifts were 6 till 2, so it's 6 in the evening till 2 in the morning.
Jesus.
So then we'd go out afterwards, and it was just like, it was fucking madness. And I got to Christmas. I was coming home for Christmas anyway, and I was like, I literally just don't want to be here anymore. Like, I don't really know anyone here. Because I was younger and again introverted and not really outgoing in that sense, like, all I did was go to the gym, cook myself some food, go to work, go out in the evening, sleep, repeat. That's all I would do. So really challenging time in my life.
That's really interesting, especially like such a young age, because I mean, like, I've worked in France just for a couple of weeks at a time, like taking uni students to the Alps, like uni groups that would book to the Alps, and that was difficult enough, like having a lot of pressure anyway, but that was when I was like mid-20s. But doing it at 18 is, you're still absorbing so much from that age of like in a work environment. Like, those few early work experiences or work environments can almost shape how you become. And like you said, they thought you didn't have initiative, so you're second guessing yourself, and then you can always take that through for a long time. But it's interesting when you said about looking back at your younger self. This is something I've tried to do recently. I've actually not even told Zoe this, is like kind of become more at peace with how I was when I was younger, in terms of like being less confident and not let it creep into my mind if I go into a social situation where there's maybe a lot of people where I start to feel uncomfortable. I can manage, a room of 30 people if I need to, but when it becomes like more, or a situation that I haven't necessarily been in before, that younger me is like, well, you're not very confident, so you're going to walk in there and look like a right idiot. And I'm like, no, like being like, that was you then, you're still here with me as like a shadow, but I've accepted that I was less confident and I'm now more confident. So thank you very much for my younger self for being there as like my devil in my ear, but it's cool, I've got this. Do you think you'd ever get to that point? Because I feel like with guys, it could have been something like that at a younger age if you're like overweight, or people were always like you said, you're performing at a good high level that people said you were arrogant. Do you think you'd ever get to that point where you're like, well, that's what people thought of me, but I know I'm not, but I'm accepting that's what happened, and then kind of moving forward? Because I feel like that can play in a lot of people's minds.
I feel like there's 3 different ways I think about that. The first one is that the only reason I was good at sport is because I was so competitive.
Yeah.
So whether you want to call competitiveness arrogance, if we label it as that just for the purpose of this topic, that arrogance is what allowed me to be as good as I was.
Yeah.
And to be better than most of the people that surrounded me. So that kind of like, in the first instance, that character trait actually helped me.
Yeah.
I think something, it's almost like forgiveness, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's almost, and like, I'm not very good at that. I hold people to fucking knives. Like, so the idea of forgiving my younger self, of course I'll be able to, but I find that really difficult to try and like comprehend forgiving actions and just general demeanor. Funny one.
You'll get there at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think it's like, I haven't really worked on it. I think it's just something that's come into my subconscious over the last couple of weeks. I don't know why, but it's just come at me really hard in terms of like, just not comfortable with the person that I used to be. And I wouldn't be comfortable going back and like talking to people that I used to know. I wouldn't be comfortable with them thinking that I was still the same person. I think I have so much pride in the work that I've done on myself to be a better person, to be more open, to be empathetic, that I don't want to have any association with the person that I used to be. So which is interesting. I just thought like that's what I'm doing, if you worked on it. But then obviously your like kind of like points after that, you came back and then you ran a bar for like 3 to 4 years, which is interesting because you were like in a bar in France, or like cafe style, and it was like you're being told you hadn't used your initiative, and then you're going to like running a bar for 3 to 4 years at quite a young age. The irony was, by the end of the 5 months in Paris, I told them they were going to leave, and they were like, "Fuck, we were just going to make you supervisor, and you'd have been the youngest supervisor in the entire group, the biggest hostel group in Europe, definitely in Europe, maybe in the world, I'm not sure." They were like, "Your improvements over the last 5 months have been absolutely insane." And I was just like, I'm just not interested. But then that meant that going back home, I've been told that I'm good enough to become a supervisor at what at the time was the biggest hostel in Europe as an actual facility. To then going and running a bar, which maybe could sit 60 people total. And I'd just been serving 60 people in one sitting by myself. So then having staff to help me, like I just literally, some Saturdays, obviously it took me time to get into to work into the role and stuff like that. But some Saturdays I'd just like plug myself into a coffee machine and I'd just be like, right, this is your section, this is your section, you're behind the bar, these are the roles, this is how we operate. Has anyone got any questions? Let's go. And I'd just bash out coffees for like 8 hours. And we'd have the team just, someone taking orders, someone running food, guys in the kitchen just knocking it all out. And it was just like dream team stuff. I fucking loved it. I love managing teams and having systems and everything going like smoothly. And then even when they don't, like problem solving. But I think the naivety of like going to France at 18 and just plunging into a world that I'd never even known. The naivety of doing that helped me so much to then also the naivety of being 18 and being given a bar to run. Like, that would bother a lot of people, like people who get bogged down in it, but I felt like I was built for it. Felt like it was where I was meant to be, because I'd just been in Paris. So running a bar in Market Harbour, like, I'm fine for that.
The contrast.
And particularly because of the size differences as well. Like, I did a Halloween in Paris, and there were 2 of us on the bar. There were 1,000 people in the venue.
Jesus.
We were like, I don't know how big the bar was. It was like a 3-sided square bar, if that makes sense. And it was probably like 8 to 10 foot each side, and it was like packed all the way around, and probably like 8 deep.
Jesus.
2 of us.
That's insane.
So then, like, Louisa's place, Saturday night, we're 5 deep. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's so busy!" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's buzzing in here. This is sick." But no dramas. We've got everyone. It's fine.
You better serve everyone in like 5 minutes.
So just those experiences just helped me massively. And then, interestingly, like you talking about going home, crying, almost into like a depressive kind of state around work, in a frustrated state. I then went from doing that bar work to, God, you got to get a real job. So then
one of those.
I went and did a retail management apprenticeship with John Lewis. The application numbers were big, the uptake numbers were low, but I managed to get, I assume because I got good practical experience, a lot of customer facing experience, managed to get a role. Mate, within 4 months, I was sat on the end of my bed every morning, like pretty much about to cry, like hated it. I'd gone from like complete freedom, autonomy, we touched on this in the last episode, just pretty much being able to do whatever I wanted to do, running the team how I wanted it, scheduling people's hours, like having a place that operated exactly how I wanted it to operate, to having to ask permission from my manager if I could like move a certain brand of candles 5 foot to the left on a different fucking shelf.
Having to like justify that to higher management when you're like, you know, in a bar, you've got confidence that you can delegate one team member to that because that's their strength or something. And then, there was a lot of hoops to jump through. And I know that from retail. I had to justify why I was moving a brand close to the front. And it was like, well, because it either didn't make as much money or it made loads of money. So I want to try one of the and then you've got the next week you've got to prove, did it work? Like, you're like, whoa, it's a lot. That's the only side I didn't like about retail.
And
the actual work part.
Being there. I think I understand as big companies, you've got like shelving plans that you have to go through, like this is this range of stuff, this is how it needs to be set out, just follow the plan, But when you're a creative person, like, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but most of the unis that I went to look at were to do product design.
Mad. I didn't know that.
That's what I was going to do at uni, and then for whatever reason decided that I didn't want to go to uni. So when you've got like a creative part in you and you're looking at stuff, I'm like, all right, this is what this piece of paper says, but I reckon I can make this look quite a bit better. But you're not allowed to.
No.
And I'm like, because I just can't, like, I can't do that. And
it plays on your mind, being like that frustration. And then that was with me when I was obviously working. There was that frustrative part of being like, I've got so much to do and want to learn and want to do this and this, and that being held back. But it's interesting though, because then you go from like a retail to like almost like the next 2 parts of your journey are like labouring. So you've got like when you start to do joinery, and then you went to go to like marquees, which are like almost the complete opposite of just like, right, you just crack on and do what you want in terms of that labour side of things, not necessarily sticking to, I can't imagine, I've never done a labouring job like it, but I can't imagine there's as many rules and
no rules.
You've
got to make sure the marquee's built. Like,
we shouldn't fall down.
It was literally just like, cried on the end of Charlie's bed. It's like, I'm not doing it anymore. Handed in my notice. There's a guy in Mum and Dad's village who had a marquee erecting company. He went to like all the country shows, put up like multiple marquees, got like deals with a lot of people. So they got like, it's literally what he does for a living. So he's got a full summer's worth of traveling the country in his lorry, put it at marquees at various places, and then obviously traveling back. taking them down. You get paid for travel as well. So you've got paid to sleep in a lorry. Like we're going up to Scotland, 7-8 hour drive, get paid 8 hours to fucking sleep in this lorry.
Sick.
Get there, bash a couple of tents up, get paid 8 hours to drive home, watch YouTube videos, sleep. But I just loved, we were outdoors all the time, whether it was raining, whether it was sunny, I just loved it. And we were making something and it was like tangible. So it's like, right, we've got a 50-foot marquee going up here, right, wicked. It might take us like 4 hours to put it up, but you lay all the stuff out on the ground. So all of a sudden you start pitching stuff up. You've got a shell, then all of a sudden like all the covers need to go on, so you're like sliding in. The other lad, I worked with a young lad, and he was quite competitive, so we'd like race to do stuff. Like my boss would tell us we were shit if she beats us, like stuff like that. That was like bit of camaraderie, but also we're putting stuff up and you get a finished product and it's so satisfying. It's only a marquee, but you're like, God, this is nice and it's square and it's neat and it's in the pitch, and I just loved it. So then when that came to an end, I also stopped drinking in that summer. For whatever reason, I was just like, I don't need to drink this summer. I'm away for most of the summer, so why don't I just stop drinking? And I got in pre-photo shoot. Before I got into the fitness industry, that was the best shape I've ever been in.
That's crazy.
And the best headspace I've ever been in. It's like felt great. So I've gone from like being basically depressed at John Lewis, like I literally didn't want to get out of bed and go to work. To being like happy outdoors, and I slept in a lorry every night. Probably had McDonald's 3 times a week. But I didn't drink, and we were outdoors all the time.
And it was like physical,
hands on. I just absolutely loved it. So then that led into what I actually quite like, making stuff and building stuff. Maybe I could do this, but on like a bit more of a refined scale. And that's where like maybe I should do some joinery stuff. But again, that's where sort of like careers advice failed me somewhat, because I thought joinery was going to be like really refined, like handiwork, like using chisels to make stuff and making fucking wood curved and like real hand skills.
Really cool.
And I got into it, and it's just like basically you have to understand how to set machines up, and the machines do all the work for you. There's like virtually no hand. From what we were doing, making like doors and windows, even though they're bespoke doors and windows, it's all what the machines can do. So it's all, your whole job is about setting machines up. And I was just kind of like, I don't really want to spend every day like get a piece of wood, run it through, pattern, did it work? No, needs to be 2 mil the other way, right? Spend 10 minutes messing around with the machine again, did it work? Gone too far, needs to go back the other way. That's all we did all day. And then yes, eventually you get a door and but then you don't see it. We didn't fit it, the carpenters fitted it.
So you don't see the end result,
so
which
like,
you got that satisfaction from doing like the marquees.
Someone else painted it, so you didn't even paint it, someone else painted it, and then it just disappeared out of the workshop, and you never saw the door that was in there first, and you never saw what, like, you replaced it. So there wasn't that tangible kind of like, wow, that was really cool, I made that looks loads better. And I wanted to make some more money, and like I said last time, that's at the point where Charlie was like, "Why don't you take people to the gym?" So we do all the time. So I was like, sick. So then I just started doing that on the side, and then I went into full-time PT, and then throughout lockdown, I had to do some online stuff to keep the business going. That was like, I watched YouTube for the first 2 weeks of lockdown, and like moped. I was like, "What the fuck is this? What do I do? I've just gone self-employed. What do? I don't understand." And I literally had 125 quid in my bank account. I remember going into Charlie, and I was like, got this marketing course by this fitness guy. It's 100 quid. Please, may I do it? She was like, go for it. And we lived to tell the tale. So,
there you go. The rest is history.
Yeah, it's just one of those. So how much time we got?
Yeah, we've got a bit of time. It's just interesting for like to know like that you love seeing that finished product, that almost like, well, not finished product, but that thing at the end is like, wow, that result, which is interesting because all of those experiences that you've had from like the managerial side of things to be then like building the marquees and seeing it finished, and you're having like satisfaction within that. You have satisfaction of like managing a team and people like doing their part and everything's coming together, have the satisfaction of the marquee, and at the end, that's so relatable to your PT because you start with somebody who wants to start a journey of fitness, and then you get to their like not necessarily their end result, but it's a result that they're like super buzzing with, and they either continue with you or they go off on their own, and they've learned so much. That again is almost like you've created a product of like you've changed their life, you've got a result you can see start to finish, and it must be so rewarding in that sense.
Sometimes like when work hasn't gone that well, I'm like, what are my skills? What am I good at? Because sometimes we forget what we're actually good at, like what are our real like talents. And I'm like, I'm really good at running a team. I'm really, really good at like getting people together, helping them work towards like common goal. I'm good at running, like leading people, and I like the design aspects of things. That's really cool. So, and I also like you said, start to end products. So with my coaching, and I'm like, can I build a team of people? It's almost like I don't just coach like you, I coach the whole team, and it's almost like running a team, and it's like you're going to need me, and I need to be able to, how can I help you? How can I make it easier for you to do your job, i.e. like lose fat or build muscle, whatever it is. So I try and view it like that. Like I'm a good people manager, so which is ironic because I'm quite introverted a lot of the time. And then on top of that, sort of like I like to pay attention to like how things are delivered, how they're packaged, from both a efficiency perspective and like a visual perspective. That's where like the little designy bits comes from and stuff like that. So it's almost trying to like everything I've done, how do I put everything that I've learned that I'm good at into what I do now, to make sure that what I'm delivering is working to like helping me. I'm working with my strengths rather than trying to do lots of stuff that I'm actually not very good at. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's why eventually I'll have a team of people that want to do my admin and stuff for me, because I'm rubbish at it. But no, it's really interesting. There was other things that I think were pivotal in your journey that I would like to touch on, but obviously we've got a couple of minutes. However, I feel like I've never really spoken to you about this event, and
I forgot that was even on there.
I know, which I think I feel like that was your biggest
I
ever.
Just went straight past it.
Your biggest ever moment. In your, I guess maybe in your life, but I feel like that would be great to start on the next episode. So maybe you could tell people like what happened, and then we leave it to the next episode.
So I always get the year wrong. I think it was 2017. It might have been 18. I was on my way to work. It was super icy. And basically, someone lost control of their car coming towards me. 3 of them, there were 4 in their car. 3 of them definitely died on scene. One of them is potentially still alive, but the police were really sketchy about the details that they gave. And then I tore my bowel in 3 places and squashed my femur, basically. So, and it took me, I was off work for 3 months, and there was a lot of internal bleeding. Probably one of the biggest parts is that there was lots of internal bleeding, so much so that when I got scanned, it was just complete darkness. So they couldn't like pinpoint where the bleeding was coming from, because usually they'd like scan you and they'd be like, oh, this is where it's coming from. But they couldn't do that. So I had to have a laparotomy, which is basically where they split you from your sternum down to like your pubic region. And they just open you up like a jacket spud, suck all the blood out. Sorry. If you're squeamish, I'm so sorry.
Like me.
I've gone full send on this. Matt's about to pass out.
If no one hears from me, I'm on the floor.
They just sucked all the blood out, and they're like, right, this is what the deal is. Bowel's torn in 3 places. So that was an absolute journey. I lost virtually all the muscle I'd ever built in my life in like a 3-month period. So lots of rehab and
I'd love to dive into
bits that come from that as well. So
I'd love to dive more into that on the beginning of the next episode. Because I feel like that'd be a very important part of your journey.
I'm super open with it as well. I'll talk about it till that cows come home. I just forget about it. So I
feel like I've got a million questions to ask you about.
Sam,
if you don't mind. But so I think like time is up for this one.
Wrapped up.
Thank you for listening. We will post on socials when this will be out. We'll post a few snippets. I cannot wait. Thank you again for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. hit that like, and the bell icon. I found out that does work apparently.
Oh,
so
notifications.
People will know when we've posted. If you're on Spotify, give it a like, give it a rating. Apparently that's a thing. I didn't know that until yesterday.
You can ask questions. You can do Q&As on Spotify as well.
Oh,
it wouldn't
sick.
let me put it in, so I don't know what that was all about. But we can start putting some Q&As in as well for people to just like ask us questions and things like that. So.
Yeah, and if people are watching but they want to listen on Apple or Amazon,
tough shit.
Yeah, we're having issues. We'll sort out soon. But thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.